Hello, reporter room investigators. Come on in, come on in. I'm sorry I'm running just a couple minutes late. Ran over. Brian Kohlberger had so much breaking news. I had a whole other show. I could have done another hour and a half on Brian Kohlberger today. But Sebastian Rogers, we have a lot of new information, and I'm going to talk a little bit about Dane at the end. Dane is missing also, Dane Paulson. So we'll talk a little bit about him at the end. But today we're going to go through all the new information that's come to light in the Sebastian Rogers case, including we're also going to go through Peter Hyatt. We're going to be going through a new theory in the case that some people feel like. We're going to talk a little bit about the vigil, and I also want to go through one of the early statements that Katie made to law enforcement. So we have a lot of stuff to dive into. Let's get started. I do need to CIA myself. Everything I'm sharing with you is my opinion, and opinions are not facts. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. So my name is Jessica Della Davies. I'm an investigative journalist, and my job is to investigate crimes, crime scenes, and potential suspects, and share with you how to do the same thing. Now, if you have not subscribed to Reporter Room, please do. A lot. Like, share, leave a comment. And I do want to just say thank you to our producers, Njaz, Sasha Angel, George Brown Pepper, and Lisa Fazio. To our channel members, thank you so much. So come on in, you guys. I did not get a chance to share this in any of the social media chat rooms, including my own on Facebook. If any of you guys are in any of those chat rooms on Facebook or on Reddit and wouldn't mind sharing this, it would help me out a lot. I just would rather have not shared it than just come in late, which is what's happening. And then thank you so much for, just want to do super thanks and coffee gratitude. Thank you so much to everybody. And also thank you for your gifted channel memberships, Njaz, Kami, and Pepper. Njaz has been doing a lot of channel memberships. She's been giving them out at a lot of the, almost, I think, every live stream. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into this. So I want to start off with going over. There's a new theory going around. I don't know if I'm going to share this one or not. I have mixed feelings about sharing it. Basically, because it just is so speculative. It's somebody overheard somebody that's now telling me that I'm now telling you. So I feel like it's a game of telephone. So I think I can't find anything to back it up. I am aware that there's a theory going around about law enforcement and how much they have versus how much they don't have. I do know about it. I'm just not sure I'm really comfortable with sharing that with you, because I just, don't want to traffic in that. So I want to talk a little bit about Peter Hyatt and his impressions of Chris Proudfoot. We're going to start with that because I do think that this is very interesting. Peter Hyatt, if you don't know, is a statement analyst. He trains law enforcement. Let me see if he has his bio here. This is a new, one of the earliest ones that we know about. He does not.
To me, and this has to do with some of my background, was autism and stepfather. And so this is just, without looking into the case at all, those two things that catch my attention because of my own background. Where there is a boyfriend or a stepfather, there's an increase of risk. It's a risk factor. Now, it's called different things through different states, and the laws differ from different states, but basically it's a risk factor. So it's something that, we got to look at that. The second risk factor is a special needs child. Is that increases the frustration upon parents, biological parents, because of the greater challenges they face. It's very difficult, some more difficult than others. But if you factor that in with a stepfather or a boyfriend in the home, now we have 2 risk factors. And then if you add in number 3, Child Protective Services history, it becomes even more so concerning. But I still didn't look too heavily into the case until I read that the boy was with his mother, who hasn't addressed the public. And that is a red flag. Something is wrong. We ask, how is it that a mother can not address the public? And I saw one criticism that I'd like to answer to. Someone obviously disagreeing with my own theories, which is great because I like to weigh different opinions, said that when the mother didn't speak, you called her on it. Then when she did speak, you called her on it. She can't win, whatever she does. Fact check. True. When the mother didn't speak, I did say that. This is not good. This is a red flag. This is a squelching of a maternal instinct that when we use the animal reference there, the mother bear, that type of analogy won't work unless it's true in nature. And so a law of nature is a mother bear, robbed of one of her whelps, is going to attack. And the expectation is that when a child goes missing, the maternal instinct will be greatly engaged, hormonal response. She'll go before a camera and say, this is my son, this is what happened, this is what he looks like, and in a particular case here. And these are some of the behaviors to look out for. These are some of the things you might see immediately. There are cases where police may know a great deal more and want to keep that tamped down. Mothers oftentimes blow right through the red lights and say, no, this is my child. It's an instinctive reaction to, and this is just a general statement, call out to the child. Then the mother gets interviewed and the media says, how are you coping? And the mother will probably answer that question politely, but move right over to what the missing child is going through. This is a natural instinct. It's something that I think is very difficult to turn off. The only thing that I've seen turn it off is guilt of some form, ranging from neglect all the way up to homicide. And this is a lot of cases over a lot of years. And so someone will say in defense, well, you don't know how you would react or how someone would react when the child goes missing. Yeah, actually we do. We have a lot of information about that. And so that this mother was quiet and didn't go to media, and there's a stepfather, and there is special needs, and there's we learned later on the history of Child Protective. These are things that are very concerning risk factors that add into a case. And so what we want to know is everything possible about a case. Mother did finally speak, and the media, I think, correctly identifies, breaks her silence. And so a maternal instinct that can be squelched like that, something's wrong, something's amiss. And then as we look into her background a little more, you can see even more so, she's likely someone that would speak out. So that caught my attention very early on. Then, to fact check the criticism as true, the second part of it is that when she did speak, I was more concerned. It's like, oh, this is not good. I didn't hear anything about Sebastian. I didn't hear the natural maternal cravings. I saw someone that was being very silent while a stepfather took over who wasn't there. And he took over the interviewing and he answered the questions. And to me, in statement analysis, the answers appeared to be coordinated, work together. And then a subsequent interview confirmed that for me. And I also, with the same technique, saying she's withholding information about what happened before 6 a.m. Something happened. And then there was, as I mentioned in a previous video, the recall, which was identical in 2 interviews in the beginning, of her need to tell the public that Sebastian said, "I love you, Mama," is another red flag in missing child cases.
I thought that was a red flag too, and I thought that the fact that she didn't say it back to him in her rendition, he only tells it to her, would have been a way to make herself look good, in my opinion. Let me know what you guys think if you have a different opinion. Let's continue on.
So the mother and the stepfather spoke about themselves, and then he took over, and the interviews from there just went wild. And I'll comment on that in a moment or two. And they talked about themselves, and they went on this, I call it an apology tour, but a rehab. My image through his language, that he is combative, that he enjoys confrontation, the language of belligerency. I was very concerned for physical abuse of Sebastian, not just emotional abuse. A certain machismo about the fighting, where he would challenge people, "I'll answer anything," and then he'd duck the answering questions. The biological father, I don't know why he wasn't in front of the cameras. Maybe he was. I didn't see that during the first week. When he did speak, I found some concerns there too. And one of the concerns, which to me was shocking that it wasn't followed up upon by the interviewer, was when he said, "If you see him, don't let him into your house." And I thought to myself, those are behavioral issues that he's addressing, and he's not being asked a follow-up question. What do you mean, don't see Sebastian outside, give him food, but don't let him in? That's really weird. That's, unusual. And that's the
So this was early on, and he's since had Seth on the show. So I just want to say that this is his initial take of seeing everything go down with the parents. So his take on Chris Proudfoot sounds like he believes that Chris Proudfoot was more concerned with reputation building than with actually finding Sebastian. And that, he had concerns about the way that Katie described Sebastian, saying that I love you, as one of the last things that he said to her. And this is just my take. This wasn't Peter Hyatt's, but my take on it was that, why didn't she say it back?
type of thing where I want to ask follow-up questions about. So with 6 weeks, as I think hope dwindles, why did this case catch so many people's interest, but not other missing children, including missing children from the area? And I think you can thank the stepfather for that. His interviews were so outrageous and so egregious that he gave probably the best PR work for keeping Sebastian's face out there than anybody did. Because people were infuriated by this guy's language and his demeanor.
That's true. All of us that saw him on the interview, where he was so rude when PI Chloe, it wasn't even a scheduled interview. He wasn't even invited on the show. He just kind of bulldozed his way into Web Sleuth Live's interview with PI Chloe, and he was so obnoxious to Trish, who was simply just trying to get the word out about Sebastian. And then we heard neighbor Bobby also describe bullying from Chris Proudfoot. She felt like trying to run her off out of her own neighborhood. So, and then we heard him on the phone with PI Heather. He didn't know the call was being recorded. It was released not by PI Heather, but I believe somebody, in Seth's camp released it. She said she did share it with Seth. And his language was terrible. And that's on the lab if you haven't heard it. This is Peter
and
Hyatt,
people rush to
statement analyst.
to blame him. And here's another thing I disagree with some of you on, is that in the original interviews, they did not show guilty knowledge of where he was location-wise, or that they killed him. If they did, I don't see it in the language. And of course, I check with a lot of other professionals with that. And
okay, so this is a professional statement analyst, and this is what he believes. He does not think that they did away with Sebastian. So I hope, I just think we should, hear out everything that, of his initial take. He's going to go through and he's going to show us why, but it's definitely worth listening in, because this is a professional statement analyst on this case. So he found some red flags with Katie. He found red flags with Chris. It sounds like he found red flags with Seth. But because Seth has a rock solid alibi, he was at the jail, prison, working as a prison guard. To me, he has the most rock solid alibi.
No one said, hey, you're missing this, you're missing that. Something that I count on in life. So his outrageousness, here's a guy that's married 5 times, another risk factor, but married 5 times, giving out marital advice. What these details gave us is actually really important. For whatever the outcome of this case may be. I want to know everything I can about the household that Sebastian walked out that door, using that expression from the mother and stepfather. And I personally think it was locked behind him, whether he ran out under duress or he stepped outside to do the garbage and she angrily locked the door, or something happened. There was an altercation of some form, which is I believe the missing information.
Okay, so you heard it from the professional statement analyst. He believes that there was some type of altercation. Now, altercation is more than an argument, but less than a physical fight. Some type of altercation between Katie and Sebastian. This is his initial impression from looking at the statements.
And something went terribly wrong. Whether she fell asleep or not, I don't know. But time significantly passed, and when she addressed things when she began to speak more after hearing criticism about her not speaking, that first interview, she looked like a hostage.
And we've talked about coercive control on this channel too.
She began to speak more, and things began to change. And one of the things that I noted in her statement was how much she stressed about time. And when someone does that, it becomes very sensitive. I look for a delay. And I believe that the phone call holds the key. And so if he is going to do a polygraph for Nancy Grace or for anyone else, the questions, you can ask the 2 questions. Do you know where he is? Did you harm him?
So we know he didn't do the polygraph for Nancy Grace, but he said he was going to show up and then didn't show up. Now they both claim that they took a polygraph and passed it, but law enforcement has never told us that Katie and Chris Proudfoot passed a polygraph, you guys. They've never told us that. And they've told us that no one has been cleared.
And I think he'll pass those things. If you ask him some questions on the polygraph, they have to be about that phone call. Did you tell your wife to lock the door? Did she lock the door? That sort of thing, along those lines, whatever the pre-screening interview reveals. And I mean this in terms of using his own language, not introducing any new words or anything from law enforcement. So roll to the beginning. 911. That's here in the United States, that's our emergency line. We want to hear from the parent present. We don't want a 3-way call. and we don't want to call to the sheriff's department. You immediately, you're the parent, you pick up the phone and you dial 911. Now, living in the United States, that is instinctive. You were there, you have the information.
So he's talking about Katie here, because as we all know, Chris Proudfoot's the one that supposedly wasn't even in town, according to him. So why was he calling law enforcement? Why was Katie the one who was present and would have had the best, most up-to-date information to give to law enforcement? Why didn't she call 911? Red flags, guys.
So that call to the sheriff's department tells me there's guilt involved. There's guilt involved. Now, I've covered this before on like the Madeleine McCann case and other cases where neglect led to harm. I've even seen those who have given someone fentanyl, person overdoses and dies, and they say, I didn't kill so-and-so. The drugs did it. And so it is with neglect. It's the same type of distancing language where I don't think that mother or stepfather intended harm to come upon him. I think machismo dad wanted to teach him a lesson, make a man of him, that sort of thing.
So it sounds like the working theory from Peter Hyatt, who's a professional statement analyst who trains law enforcement. The working theory is that sounds like he believes that Sebastian went out the door on his own, and that the door was locked behind him, and that Katie fell asleep and didn't wake up until the next morning. Was she drinking? I don't know, but that's his initial impression. Or do you think he's just trying to give Katie a graceful way out here, so she does feel like she can come forward and say what happened?
But I'm certainly open to other opinions. And one of the things I want to answer as we go on a little bit further is objections to that. Like no dog scent, no this or that. I think those are important objections, and they should stand. What I've learned over the years, this may sound like a little bit crazy, but when the language and the evidence differ, or the language and reason differ. So if he left in barefoot and the dogs didn't pick up the scent, hey, what's wrong with, there's a hole there in your thinking. And what I've learned, over a lot of years is when the language and these things differ, if I stay with the language and the case comes out, I find, makes sense. I didn't know this detail, didn't know that detail, but now it makes sense. And the language for me most often proves to be correct. And so I don't know why dogs didn't pick up the scent. I know it's not, and also with the searches, it's not as foolproof as it may appear on television. And I bring up the point here because you can listen to the video on this. There was a young woman in the United Kingdom who went missing. Her name was NICHOL. And when she went missing, her common law husband or partner spoke out, and he did not show concern for her whereabouts. In fact, his language showed that he had processed, she's not coming back. He had to be asked, you're holding out hope, aren't you? Which is a terrible question to ask. And he would affirm, yeah, I'm holding out hope. But there were other things in his language. So there was a red flag right off the bat, and people correctly identified that. But if you listen carefully to him, his language was the same as other spouses of suicidal people. And what we need to do, it's called linguistic empathy, is to understand what does someone go through in living with someone that is suicidal. they go through this trauma, this significant hormonal response. And if it continues over time, especially over a couple of years, emergency after emergency after emergency, they wear out. I covered another case on one of the videos where a pastor's wife went missing, and there was similar vein in his language. A certain resignation that you don't expect to be there. And this is because they get worn down. And Nicola Bully's common law husband was worn down. And so I thought, oh, she's had mental health issues for a long time.
So he's very accurate. In my opinion, he's very, very good at his job. He was able to just see, that Nicola Bully was not related to him doing something to her. And he's the one, if you don't know who he is, this is Peter Hyatt. He's a statement analyst. He trains law enforcement. He's currently fighting stage 4 cancer, which is why he probably hasn't posted for a while. So please keep him in your prayers, you guys. But I also just want to share that, I think a lot of the, red flags that he's seen are similar to red flags that you guys have seen too. And this is, his initial assessment of watching, what he, calls stepfather, which is Chris Proudfoot. Let me just check in with chat. Thank you so much, Pepper, for sharing this video on your socials. I didn't get a chance to get it out. I feel bad. Because I do want to raise awareness for Sebastian. Hi, this is our head mod, Brother Mike. I'm just going to say hello to chat. Come on in. Tell me where you guys are from. Hi, Njaz. Njaz is our other head mod. Thank you for modding today, Elsa. Glad you're here. Tell me where you guys are from. Hi, Orange Wedge. Leslie, Keep It Real is here. Dabs is here. Come on over. Come on in, you guys. Lucy Day is here. Leslie's here. Yeah, please give it a thumbs up on your way in. Pepper says, I have shared in almost all my socials. Thank you so much, Pepper. I really, really appreciate it. Did you get a chance and see what I wanted you to cover? See it where? I didn't see it, so I don't know. You'll have to tell me like where you looked. Let me say thank you so much to Brother Mike for the super sticker. Thank you so much. And Brother Mike's been a member for 11 months. Congratulations. How sweet it is to be a channel member. Thank you. And thank you to Njaz for gifting a channel membership. Oh, that's so nice of you. If you got that channel membership from Njaz, please let her know. And I look like I'm putting myself right over. I'll move myself up here. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. All right, let's see who else is in here. Come on in. Tell me where you're from. Oh, Orange Wedge got the channel membership. Whoa, congratulations. And thank you again. That's so nice. Leslie says, thank you for gifting another membership, hun. Brother Rick says, Katie Proudfoot's not telling the truth, in my opinion. And Leslie says, so many red lies and red flags. Poppy says, hi, reporter room. Is this past Peter Hyatt? Yeah. This Peter Hyatt's still with us. He's fighting stage 4 cancer. And that's all we know. That's all we know. And that he's asked for prayers. So, all right, let's continue on with Peter Hyatt because I think has a lot of insights. He was early on out of the gate. His working theory initially sounds like, and I'm just going to summarize here, is that he thinks that there was some type of altercation that took place in the Proudfoot home and that the door was locked behind Sebastian, either intentionally or, Katie fell asleep. But Katie and Chris have said that they were on the phone for 3 hours. I told you guys in the last live stream that the times they gave actually add up to 2 hours and 15 minutes. And I was wondering if that 10 p.m. thud was alibi building. But let's listen to Peter because I think he's the voice of reason in all of everything that's going down in this case.
And the the media and the public via social media were not having it. They were not buying it. This was absolutely a police cover-up, and this was, he's the killer, and someone moved the body, and all that sort of things. And police gave out some personal information which would affirm some mental health issues, and they got slammed for that because they're trying to defend themselves, and it's really difficult to do so in that situation. But while they were searching for her, a searcher, professional searcher, with some very expensive boating equipment, came forward to volunteer his services. And when he first spoke out, I was glad to hear his confidence. I'll find her. I can find her within 5 or 10 minutes. And I thought, oh, that's a little much. And then I noticed that he kept going back to the camera. And I said, uh-oh, the police are going to be in trouble with this one, because they have somebody who loves the camera, and that's not good. Not in cases like that. And he missed the body, which was really close by. And it happens. And dogs miss scents, especially contaminated areas where he may have been outside during the day, for example. And it happens. And it's very difficult, I think, to find, especially in any type of rural area, to find someone. Regarding that, I think it's fair to assume that law enforcement has gone through his entire circle of social contacts, which apparently was small. And I appreciate journalists that are continuing to dig at that and to look for things like that. Journalists, they don't have the same type of connection with mainstream media that is oftentimes dictated by advertising. So I that's what I follow on Twitter is different independent journalists. I appreciate a lot of the people that just
He's not wrong. He's right. So I want to go through some of you guys' comments. On the last live stream, I want to go through those. Let me go to the video. Hold on one second. And I'm going to start with subscriber comments. And then if we have time, we'll do non-subscriber comments. But I do want to go through some of, because I do think it's interesting. Let's see. Okay. And we'll come back to Peter Hyatt in just a second, but I want to go through some of your comments on this too, because I think this is really informative to just sort of, just see how everybody is feeling about this. So please, if you're stating your opinion, do say your opinion, protect yourself. Kim Bibb says, in my opinion, I think that awesome day was done because some way, somehow, Sebastian was being removed from the home. It's no secret at all. At least Chris didn't want him living in the home. From what I understand, Katie gave Chris an ultimatum. From Chris's standpoint, it's him, Sebastian, or me, Chris. We see the Proudfoots trying to get Seth checking out the boarding school. My feelings on this are that Chris just didn't care for the kid at all. He might have liked him at first when he was younger, but as he became a teenager, I think Chris, who obviously has issues with his eyes, he thinks highly of himself and Katie. Neither one of them are lookers in most people's eyes, but he doesn't understand that he sees them as, quote, above. He sees, and when she's talking about them, I think she's talking about Chris and Katie, above Seth and Sebastian. And I told you guys in the past that I felt like people who have narcissistic problems, that they do need to see them. And I'm not diagnosing anybody, I'm just using it as an adjective, but they do need to feel superior to other people. Carol says anger is a part of grieving. Carol says, I think they told select few. And what she's talking about, I had made some comments about like, I didn't know why some people were invited to, I'm not invited to the prayer vigil. And and you guys were really great about clarifying this. Sherry said, I think Chris knows where Sebastian is or his body is. I think that Katie did OD Sebastian because he was too hyped up. This is not me saying this, is their comments that I'm reading. He wouldn't settle down. She gave him too much of his medication. And Peter Hyatt brought up fentanyl. Sherry's Middle Tennessee. Live Frequency says, can you clarify Katie Proudfoot passed lie detector tests? According to them, Chris and Katie Proudfoot passed lie detectors. According to them, they passed lie detector tests. That's what they tell us. But I have not heard it from any other source. So my honest answer is just that. I only know what they've told us. Were Chris Proudfoot's parents cleared for leaving the country after Sebastian went missing? There would be no reason why they would be detained, because no one has ever been detained in relation to this. So yes, they would of course been allowed to leave leave the country. They apparently had a planned trip. Was there footage of Sebastian getting out of the vehicle once they arrived home? Not to my knowledge. So I hope I've answered your questions. Sherry says, in my opinion, Katie unalived Sebastian in her vehicle with a prescription overdose. I don't know. There's no evidence of that. So I just want to, urge you. She did say, in my opinion, and she says, in my opinion, the flashlight video was Katie giving Sebastian clothes that she described in the interviews and the keychain flashlight. Cop wife mom says, I absolutely agree with you on not inviting certain people. We don't know that Chris and Katie did anything. Content creators should be there because it helps get the word out. So I got some more clarification on that. And there is another side to why certain people weren't invited. I'm not going to go into it live because I don't do the. There is Seth does have a point of view on this, and after hearing both sides, I do think that was a no. But should be able to come. So my understanding, and this is, I just want to say, to just put this on the record, that my understanding was that there were places saved for Chris and Katie Proudfoot to come. So there's that. So that fact that they were told that they weren't allowed to come was not true. Michael Johnson says the list was fake. Well, not fake, but not from the authority, police, TBI. Someone put it out anonymously, I'm sure, to cause problems. That's what I'm wondering too. So people, do stuff like this. I don't know. It looks like I thumbs up his comment, but didn't hurt it. People do stuff like this. They do, try to make, if there isn't enough drama, some people that don't have integrity will try to make drama. Robin said, I thought the list about people not allowed to go to the vigil was made up by haters. So there you go. And then let's go through some of you guys that are not subscribed. All right. Kathy said, they had, let me see, I think I already did that one. Oop. Deborah said, there's way too many red flags and lies told in this case. I would never believe Sebastian walked out on his own. Nunibus says they searched the landfill because the trash was, quote, heavy. Diane says, I never believed that the boy left the house on his own, in my opinion. Zoo Blue said, thank you for all you do for Sebastian, and put green hearts for Sebastian and prayer hands. Premeditated said, it's called a clean disappearance. That means no evidence is evidence of a well thought out, clean crime. Laura says, if Katie loved that boy, she would turn in Chris or anybody who hurt or took her baby if she knew. If she doesn't love the child, she won't do anything because he's gone and she prefers it that way. It's really is that simple to me. The child did not walk away from his home. I believe he was taken. And that is Laura's opinion. Nordic Princess says, red flag. The facts that the Proudfoots waited over a week to speak to the public is a huge red flag. Of course, they gave him time to get their facts straight. Carla says, search family property, get a warrant, you will find him. Green Girl in Bushes says, per Katie, Sebastian knew the code for the front door. He could get in and out. And she put a green heart there for Sebastian because Sebastian's favorite color is green. Babs 22 said, Dolly said, oh no, I don't want to talk about that. I don't, no drama. Okay. Denise says, when you are paying for publishing and executing a gathering, I feel you should have the right to exclude who you don't want there. The people who were excluded have caused physical problems as well as mental issues for Seth. I'm sure he wanted no drama that day. The vigil was going to be hard enough without inviting trouble. Well, the one thing that we've heard, and I just want to clear this up, is that that list that was put out was a hoax. So it wasn't from Seth like it was being reported. So I just want to say that that list was reportedly a hoax, not just put out there to cause drama, not put out there by Seth. Paula says, I honestly believe that Chris Proudfoot wasn't allowed to come while Sebastian was there because of child protective services. She don't come home from Memphis. Thank you, Kathy, for the super sticker. Grace says, hi, Jessica. If Sebastian wore diapers at Chris and Katie's, why weren't they included in the clothing description on the missing flyer asking for a few thousand people? Well, I think because you wouldn't talk about somebody's undergarments, like what color, if they, wore like a bra, or what colors, that's my opinion. They were undergarments. They wouldn't have been seen. So I hope I've answered your question on that. Grace, if I also asked you, what do you think? Why? Sherry said, let's see. I want to be careful of like some of the ones that are just like point blank accusations. JJ said, Chris was trying to get with a YouTube creator. Oh, I don't know anything about that. Bab says, Chris and Katie were not told to stay away. They were invited. They chose not to attend. So I thanked her for clearing this up. And we don't know who the email was from. I've heard about this email too, but we don't know who the email was from. Erica says, it's been a year already and we've heard the same things over and over. We all have our opinions, but law enforcement has to give us some public answers now. Well, they're not going to jeopardize their case to give us public answers. They have a right to protect the integrity of their case. And maybe, just to reminder, Seth is not a law enforcement. He worked in a jail as correctional personnel. I know, I understand that, but my understanding was that that is law enforcement, that you are considered law enforcement. So let me check in with chat and let's see where we are. I know I'm behind. Let me see. It's very interesting to read through you guys' comments too. If you drop me a comment in the comment section below and you're subscribed, I will read your comments out on the next live stream that we do on this case. As long as you are clearly stating your opinion and you're not, directly accusing somebody. I want to be really careful that we don't falsely accuse someone. I just want to be, mindful of that. And hi, Jody. Facebook group. It's about Aubrey. I don't know. I was in Facebook earlier, but when I'm getting ready to go live, I don't always see the messages if you post them in Facebook, but you could post it again. I don't know where it is. Sheila said, hey, Jessica, glad I caught you. Hope you're doing well. Thank you, Sheila. Donna says, thank you for all your research and time to this sad case. Thank you too, Donna. Thank you, all of you guys, for caring about Sebastian. Leslie said, Chris Proudfoot has emergency numbers for Seth's workplace. Yeah, nobody. So that may be why he called. Salfigure says, what's goody? What's goody? What's goody? Dynamite says, there's such a thing as Napoleon syndrome. I believe that Chris Proudfoot suffers from that. He's a bully type. You can see it, and it's obvious through records that he's bullied poor Sebastian. It makes me cry. All right, well, let's continue on with Peter Hyatt because I do think he has some really good insights into this.
And you'll probably carry that frustration if you cared for the child, and I mean that literally cared, not emotionally, but in a tangible way, being not able to care for that child that frustration is going. I've been asked about psychics and missing person cases. No, they don't solve anything, and except on TV. Generally, you get, the psychic, the tarot reading, the crystal ball, whatever it may be used. It's as old as human history itself, but the language doesn't show experiential knowledge. So we often get the passivity or the vagueness. Behind that is, in my experience, and the two times that I had to confront this over the years, is the person is very likely to have a personality disorder that absolutely craves from childhood to be seen as special, unique, different.
He's
And so
talking
when it
about
comes
psychics
to
here.
contacting the families of missing children, I label them predators. They're preying upon the vulnerability and weaknesses of someone in the worst time of their lives and giving them false hope. So I'm sure there'll be something on Netflix will tell you to the contrary, but that's the experience, and that's what their language indicates. That's why they strike out so badly.
So this is his professional opinion. This is, I'm not saying anything against psychics, but he just feels like, that they do prey on people who, want to have some new information, and that they have a personality disorder. So it may not even be intentional on the person who's saying this. Let me know what you think. But I do think that watching this early interview is very interesting. I do think it tells us a lot about how he initially saw the case. We've had a lot more come to light since this, but I do think that having Peter Hyatt's expertise is helpful.
When I did the Nicola bully case and found it was, that this guy is repeating things that cops told him, and he's traumatized with ongoing suicidal ideation and some emergencies where police had to be called. The criticism was very emotional, very angry, ridiculing, name calling. And I like to have all sorts of interaction. I end up having to block some people because of it. They could not accept it. Police, and no one could tell me what was the motive for police wanting to botch a case like that. What was the gain? Because generally, if you're looking at some conspiracy, following the money is the right track to take. But it's the same type of reaction, and so sometimes you hear people even choosing sides. I'm on the father's side, and I'm on stepfather's side, and the mother's.
So he's talking about how people chose sides. This is early on. This is 6 weeks after Sebastian disappeared. So, 11 months ago, he's talking about how people were already, choosing sides, and how that is, so typical in these cases. And, we're seeing it in this case too, where we have, this team and that team. But, I hope that all of you guys will join me, here on Reporter Room, and just know that we are on Sebastian's team. I have, I am, I don't think, and that none of these parents are perfect, but I'm just, really strongly, hearing Peter Hyatt say he's gotten blocked because somebody doesn't agree with him. So, my feeling about that is we're not all going to agree on every single case. You might have agreed with me on the Delphi case, where I felt like there were multiple people besides Keegan Klein using that Anthony Shots catfish account. Some of you might agree, some of you might disagree with that. So on the Brian Kohlberger case, some of you guys might agree with, with me. Some of you guys might not. We're not going to all agree on every single case. And on some are, well, some of you might agree, some of you might disagree. That's okay. We don't all have to agree on every single case. Because in a year from now, we're going to be talking about a different case, and we may not all agree on that one either. So he's saying, let's not get onto teams. Let's not, get into that mindset where we're only looking for information that confirms what we already believe. Let's keep our minds open for new information as it comes to light. And I think a lot of you guys have done a great job doing that. I just really do feel like this is a critical thinkers channel. We have really smart people who want to have all the information so they can make up their own mind on this case. And I do think that this channel really does have highly intelligent viewers.
Side, and no, not me, I'm on Sebastian's side. And you can even see in the emotional language of social media, people are addressing Sebastian directly as if he's, read your tweet or your Facebook page or something.
And I love that. I love that when people address Sebastian directly, because that tells me that you really care about Sebastian.
That's how emotional it becomes. With the McCann case, I found that McCann supporters were willing to say things that the McCanns themselves weren't willing to say. That's how far it can go. And I understand the emotional reaction. I'm a dad and a grandfather, and it's hurtful. I take breaks frequently from crime cases. So criticism, I think overall, in terms of critiquing a theory, is very useful. And you want to punch holes in it as best you can. And you want to hear that he's been stashed someplace by a friend. But I do think in this particular case that that's not going to be the outcome, because I think police would be able to cover his social circle very carefully. If he has been taken after being put out of the house or running out under duress, barefoot, without a phone, he had to be really upset. And it's possible that he could have met a stranger along the way
And if that happened, if that's what happened to him, I still hold the parents accountable for that. I still hold Katie accountable because, what was she doing when he got out of the house? Did she lock the door behind him? How did he get outside the house with no shoes on? Why don't we have any search dogs that picked up a scent of him? If he did meet with foul play, why didn't any of the security doorbell cameras pick him up?
foul play. The guilt that I see within the mother and stepfather is because whatever took place between her and her son led to him going out that door. And she's withholding that information.
So that's really powerful. It's really, really powerful. So he really does believe that whatever took place between Katie and Sebastian led her to going outside that door. I hope you guys are okay with this. I do want to just bring up this little guy. This is Dane, and I just did want to I know this is not a Dane video, but I just do want to just see if you guys will share this on your socials. This little guy went missing. They're focusing on a river. He's a 2-year-old. His name is Dane Paulson. And there he is. He's just as cute can be. And he disappeared from his own yard in Oregon. And at the press conference yesterday, the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office said that evidence suggests that he was near the edge of the Siletz River before he disappeared. So they said they found impressions. So I don't know if impressions, first I was thinking they were maybe little footprints or shoe prints, but now I'm wondering if it wasn't something else, because why wouldn't you just say partial footprints or shoe prints? Now I'm wondering if the impression was that the bank of the river. But he said, based on the information from search efforts and following up on tips, we'll be concentrating on a focused area. This is Sheriff Sergeant Jason Spano. Sorry. So far, the evidence available indicates that Dane was at the river's edge before his disappearance. That's an exact quote. So he was last seen out of sight of his parents playing in the front yard of his residence. So the front yard in Siletz, Oregon on Saturday, March 1st at approximately 4:25 p.m. local time. And the family's house is situated on the bank of a river, according to the Statesman Journal. So I think the fact that they found impressions, for those of you that have been following this case, and I know some of you guys have, because we have a Facebook group about Dane on Facebook, and and I think that the impressions, originally I thought they must be footprints or shoe prints, but now I'm wondering if the reason they use the word impression and not partial footprints or partial shoe prints is maybe because it wasn't that. Maybe it was like a sliding of a tush, like his tush sat onto the ground, his and made a little impression, and as he went in, maybe he fell. But I did want to talk about him. All right, let's go back to Peter Hyatt, because I do think he's the voice and reason of all of this.
And at age 15, it's debatable whether they could be charged for anything. The only type of charge I can think of is if Sebastian's alive and can testify, that's a given. But the other charge I was thinking about recently, the possibility of obstruction. They get enough of the interviews, you watch enough of the interviews, keep talking, we'll keep listening. And there are things that if they can prove that something went wrong, that they withheld information, they delayed the call, they coordinated, that sort of thing, in the very least, it's going to raise suspicion.
So we have heard, comments from like at night that said that Katie did, quote, take the fifth. This is what they're reporting. This is not what I'm reporting. But I'm just reporting what they said. I don't have I don't have the sources that they have, but they said that she did. And, and I told you guys at the time that if she did, it was because the FBI is involved, and lying to a federal officer you can be charged with a felony for that, obstruction of justice. So if she's not truthful, and a lot of you guys who have watched this, not everyone, but a lot of you guys, have seen a lot of red flags in relation to statements made by Chris and Katie Proudfoot, including Peter Hyatt.
Recently saw this on the news, like talking about neglect. So the guilt of neglect, having put him outside, maybe she fell asleep, I don't know. Maybe he ran off very upset. Maybe he wanted to show them, I am a man. I'll get to that in a minute. People have said, well, would he have been yelling, banging on the door? Would neighbors have heard that? And those are good questions to ask, good challenges to ask. I wonder if we'll find out. But an example of just in a news story, I think yesterday.
So if he was banging on the door, like he got locked out and was knocking or banging, the thud at 10 p.m., I don't know. Was that him, trying to get in? Was he put out of the house or locked out of the house, and she just thought, let him be a man? Chris is egging her on the phone. Allegedly, in my opinion.
Day before, I saw a woman was suing resort or a cruise line or something for the drowning death of her 4-year-old daughter. And it's a terrible tragedy. The 4-year-old died on one of the indoor raft things, or, the raft, the slow raft moving. And so she wants $1 million or whatever she wants for the death of her daughter because they didn't have a lifeguard. And she was in a hot tub, according to her, not watching her 4-year-old daughter. So people with neglect is the easiest form of child abuse. Just do nothing. People with neglect do show guilt. I don't think the McCanns meant to kill their daughter.
And for those of you who have not seen his assessment on the McCann case, this is how we first found out about this is how I first found out about Peter Hyatt. Was he did an assessment. Richard D. Hall came over from Scotland and interviewed Peter Hyatt, and Peter Hyatt did a statement analysis of one of the early Kate and Jerry McCann. And if you have not seen that, when you're done here, you will want to Google Peter Hyatt and Richard D. Hall McCann, McCann, and watch Peter Hyatt's assessment of that.
But they neglected her. And that was someone really young.
And so the neglect he's talking about in the McCann case is that the McCanns went into dinner and left a 3-year-old and 2 younger children, the twins who were even younger, or Madeline, I think, was 4. Oh, she was 4. In their hotel room in a foreign country in Portugal, unattended, while they went out for dinner and drinks with their friends. That's neglect.
Okay, another one of the things that people seem to be quite upset about is the personal details that have come out in recent weeks. And I want to see if anyone has any questions while I get to that stuff. Okay, some of the details that have come out. In the case of a 15-year-old special needs child, the mother-stepfather combination revealed that he wears a pull-up at their house. Now, you picture what it's like for the dad to hear that, because he doesn't do it at dad's house. And I think I can say this now. I didn't say it a couple weeks ago. When a teenager who is relatively high functioning, and I know there's all sorts of disagreements because it's subjective, but when a teenager has that type of issue, we look for extreme anxiety or sexual abuse. And I'm not saying that's what happened, but that's what.
So this was early on in the case, and now we do know Peter Hyatt was spot on, like with this, as far as the SA, right? We do know that this did happen to Sebastian from an older teenager, a teenager that was older than Sebastian. So now we know that so he was spot on, but this is before we all knew that information, but he was already picking up on this.
I bit my tongue out a couple of weeks ago. I didn't want to say it. And of course, now that allegation has come out.
Oh, there we go.
And of course, the biological father said, don't let him in your house. There was some concern with that, about acting out behavior, which I think may speak to his son had to be really upset and maybe not safe if someone has children or that sort of thing. In a child protective investigation, with any outcome here, every detail needs to be known. Every detail needs to be known. It's a risk factor for abuse and neglect. You can imagine the anxiety of the boy, but the stress that puts upon a family, and then a stress that puts upon a stepfather who uses the language of belligerence, that type of machismo, I'll teach him to be a man. And I thought to myself, I think that the stepfather probably ridiculed this young boy's masculinity based on some of those earlier details.
Okay, so you're hearing this from Peter Hyatt. This is his opinion. He thinks that, that Chris Proudfoot was ridiculing Sebastian. Now, we've all seen the video that Chris Proudfoot released of Sebastian on his bike. And some people have said that the video was, not true. This is my opinion on watching the video. I think it is a video, but it has multiple cuts in the video. And I don't know why, but but we also know that being in a coercive control type of situation, it's cyclical, right? DV is cyclical. There's good times. They're not all bad, but this was also, in my opinion, Sebastian looked a lot littler in that. He was riding his bike and Chris appears to be cheering him on, but there's also multiple jump cuts in that video where you can see where stuff has been cut out. And maybe it was just, Sebastian went out of the way and they just didn't think anybody would, want to watch that. Maybe Chris said something personal to somebody else. I don't know. That had nothing to do with anything, but he just didn't want personal information out. It could have just been that simple, But just remember that in a DV cycle, there are good times and there are not good times. It's cyclical. So just because you were nice to somebody at one point doesn't mean you can't also be a DV perpetrator, not you, but somebody in another situation or behind closed doors or later down the road. And I do believe that Sebastian was scapegoated, in my opinion. Allegedly. Don't come for me.
And as he is in adolescence, that can become unbearable. Unbearable. I don't think even the most offenders of mother, stepfather would say, yeah, I'd let him watch my kids. So one of the ex-wives, now if I was doing the Child Protective Service investigation, I'd interview all of them. But one of the ex-wives spoke, and I commented on this last time, that the young, excellent job.
So he's talking about Trev Time and he's talking about Nina Gomez.
And it's not the type of salacious details where it's tantalizing for anyone. It's ugly. And this is called congruence in language, what she described was what everyone heard from Mr. Chris himself. The language matched. Now, there was, and I found her to be reliable.
Oh, there you go. So for anybody who was like, oh, I don't know, if we can believe Nina Gomez, she might have an ulterior motive. Here's a professional statement analyst.
Missing information, and that is expected in one of these he said, she said cases, where she is very likely withholding information of things that she did, things that she said, that sort of thing. But she reliably reported a personality that we saw through the interviewing process. And it matters. We want to know, A, what was the environment like in where he went missing? In the home where he went missing. We need to know. We need to know, was stepfather threatening to leave mother over him? He was due to be going back with his dad. So we need to know.
And you guys, what I think about this. I do believe that he was withholding, just like he did with Nina Gomez, Chris Proudfoot I'm talking about here, was withholding his emotional financial support to Katie Proudfoot. That's why he wasn't coming home in February, or he wasn't coming home because of the CPS calls. But either way, I feel like Katie was being asked to make a choice, in my opinion. And I think that, however you want to think about that choice, I'm not going to tell you what to think. I'm just going to share with you, my feelings on it. I'd love to hear what yours are. We may not always agree, but I always would like to hear what you guys have to say about this. But I do feel like, over and over, Katie chose Chris Proudfoot. She repeatedly chose him. She repeatedly picked Chris Proudfoot over Sebastian. When CPS came into the house, she did not take Sebastian's side. When Chris was using a belt when I saw that car needing to be parked in a handicapped space, I thought, oh my gosh, he needs a handicapped space, but you thought it was okay to let Chris Proudfoot use a belt? No, it wasn't okay. It isn't okay. And I have a big problem with that. I feel like she took Chris Proudfoot's side every single time. And if she has withheld information from law enforcement that could have led to finding Sebastian and didn't call 911 herself, which again, it's weird that she didn't make that call. It's a red flag. She was the last one. Chris wasn't even in town, according to her. I trust Peter Hyatt. I trust his assessment. And I do believe that we may, if they can figure out, I do think law enforcement does have a working theory. And this is where I told you about the rumors. I don't want to share the rumors because I don't know, it's coming to me fourth hand. So I don't know, if, if you ever played the game of telephone, you could just see how something gets distorted in the retelling. But I do believe that law enforcement does have theories on this case. I do believe that they probably know what they believe happened to Sebastian Rogers. They need something. And I know that from listening to information that the DA is communicating with law enforcement every week, that tells me that he's prepared to bring charges. I told you that when SF Investigate said that, what he wondered out, in a post on Twitter, why law enforcement would be communicating with Tony Mathis, who's the spokesperson for Seth Rogers, but not his clients, Chris and Katie Proudfoot. I saw that as a huge red flag that maybe law enforcement has a reason that they're not communicating with Chris and Katie Proudfoot. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. But I wanted to go back over what Peter Hyatt, what his original assessment was, because I think in all of this, these teams that have broken up, we've sort of lost, it's not all of us, but some people have lost the focus, which needs to be Sebastian. I just thought it would be helpful to bring back in a voice of reason into all of this, to maybe, I know everybody has their theories, and I'm not telling you what to think, but I do think that at the very least, there's obstruction of justice potentially here.
That is a mainstay of the investigation. So we interview everyone separate, face to face, and then we go into the world of collateral interviews. Neighbors, teachers, coaches, pediatrician, aunts, uncles, grandmothers, grandfathers, biological.
And mind you, law enforcement does have this information. We've heard from neighbor Bobby. We heard from neighbor Bobby and what she thought. And I still think that lights video is hugely relevant and important. But neighbor Bobby got basically run off in her own neighborhood. Like, she doesn't have the right to drive down the street in her own neighborhood and without having Chris Proudfoot come out and bully her. So if he's like that with his neighbors, if he's like that with Trish from Web Sleuths Live, if he's like that with private investigator Heather, and we've all heard him, what was it like for Sebastian to be under the rule and under the thumb of Chris Proudfoot? I think it was horrible, in my opinion, allegedly. And to have Katie choose Chris like I believe she has every single time, it's heartbreaking when you think about it from a special needs teen with autism who has trouble expressing himself, expressing his feelings, to have somebody like Chris Proudfoot in the house talking to him the way that we heard him talk to Trish on Web Sleuths Live, the way we heard him talk to PI Heather, the way that we heard about the way he talked to the neighbor Bobby. So we're hearing this report after report after report about Chris Proudfoot. So just imagine your special needs. You have trouble communicating how you feel to people because of your autism, and you have to endure a personality like that who has power and control over you. You don't have the ability to leave, and your own mother is choosing him over you when CPS comes to investigate, allegedly, in my opinion.
Are there any connections there? With this whole circle gets large with interviewing for collaterals, and we allow a picture to emerge of what it would be like for Sebastian living there. That's to learn what's the environment. He's no longer there, the environment that he went missing under, because they are responsible for that. Then what if Sebastian is found alive? Where does he go? You have to investigate the biological father's household as well. It matters. It matters. Every detail. I want to know everything I can possibly know about a case. I want to understand it from each person's perspective. That's linguistic empathy within statement analysis. So I'm missing anything here. So I am glad, and not that I watch all the different shows, but I am glad that the name is getting out there, the face is getting out there, and that people are doing that. I don't go much for the sniping and criticisms, and some of the things, they are sensationalistic in terms of broadcasting, but it's getting out there.
So I think Peter Hyatt has been the voice of reason. This whole time that he has been the voice of reason in this case. This is why I respect this man so immensely. And what a treasure he has been to the true crime community to be able to have access to his analysis on these cases. And because he is unbiased, he will tell you what he thinks, even if it's different from somebody else. And yes, this was shortly after Orange Wedge. This was 6 weeks after Sebastian disappeared. So he didn't, like a lot of things that we know now, he didn't know when he was doing this. But, I do think it's really helpful to hear what he thought about this. I just really do appreciate him. And he is fighting stage 4 cancer for you guys. And he has asked for prayers if any of you guys would be willing to pray for him. Penjam says, poor Sebastian, it must have felt so alone. And Josh says, poor Sebastian. Thank you, Tammy. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring. Leslie says, in my opinion, they didn't see Sebastian on the camera across the street. And that video that they tried to release that to mislead us. I told you guys, go to Lore Lodge, where SF Investigates was on their channel over a month ago, and watch him and tell me he's not talking about the video that they released. The video that they released as, new information. But ask journalists to hold. I don't like false flags. I don't like feeling like I'm being manipulated. I do really like Peter Hyatt. I do. I trust this man. I trust this man. I think he will tell you what he really thinks. He is not here. He was not doing this for clicks and views. He said he had people block him on the McCann case, on every case where if he doesn't, he'll say what he thinks. But I think he's the voice of reason. And just going back and listening to his, most earliest assessments, he feels like at the very least, there's an obstruction of justice charge here, where information was withheld from law enforcement. And this was 6 weeks after Sebastian disappeared. So, 11 months ago. And then I reported out to you guys last week that At Night Media was reporting that Katie had retained an attorney and that she went and met with investigators with a lawyer and reportedly took the 5th. Or maybe the lawyer wasn't present and she just took the 5th. I may have misconstrued that, but she took the 5th. At least she had legal advice. And why would you take the 5th? Because you've said something that's not true. And if the FBI are interviewing you, and you lied to the FBI about something as important as a missing special needs child, that's a felony. That's a felony. So I do believe law enforcement does have a sense of what happened to Sebastian. I believe, just like you guys have theories, just like I have a theory, I do believe that law enforcement also has a theory, which is why we're seeing the frustration from SF investigation, getting cooperation or information from law enforcement, that he believes that Tony Mathis and Seth Rogers are but maybe it's because his clients allegedly could be speculation, in my opinion, could be the target of their investigation, at least as far as obstruction of justice goes. Holly believes that SF was talking about that same video on Lore Lodge. Yeah, Sebastian's, again, we have this missing teenager who was being bullied, who was trying. Again, this is a child that when the CPS came to call would have had difficulty expressing his feelings and emotions. He would have had, this was, something that people with autism struggle with. It's not that they don't have emotions or feelings. So some people have seen people, if you want to know what people with autism are really like, watch Love on the Spectrum on Netflix. And you will see that they have feelings, they have compassions. What they struggle with are picking up social cues and then expressing the love and feelings and empathy that they have for other people. And I believe Sebastian was a sweet young man. And just watching Katie interacting with him at the Roadhouse, Texas restaurant was so disappointing, that she's out having dinner with him and she's not looking at him, she's interacting with him. She just has her head down the whole time in that phone. I think she looks up once or twice to interact with Sebastian. Why? When you go to dinner, do you spend the whole time at the restaurant playing on your cell phone, texting? Who was she texting? Dab says, I believe every word Peter is saying. Leslie thinks the environment was toxic. Calgal says, Sebastian knew the door code for the front door. He could have let himself in. Yeah, unless he wasn't being allowed. What was this thud about that got added later too, you guys? Prayers for Peter Hyatt. What is the thud that got added later? Why do we have this thud? Why wasn't this told in the original rendition of the story? Was it to tighten up the timeline so that she could, and then she heard back from Sebastian. It changed again a third time. And people are like, well, why do you feel a certain kind of way? And I'm like, well, I feel a certain kind of way about this case because I'm listening to people like Peter Hyatt and criminal profiler Pat Brown and statement analyst Steve Johnson. And I'm listening to their assessment as professionals. And I'm trusting my own gut instinct in addition to that. And you guys have the same, a lot of you, not everybody, but you have the same feelings that we all do. Peter, my understanding, the only thing I know is that Peter's with us. He's okay. He's just they are asking for prayers. He does have cancer. And the only reason I feel comfortable telling you that is he posted it on social media. So he has my trust too. And Jazz says, hello to you, someone in hiding. Jody says to you and Jazz, how sweet you are. Well, guys, I feel like if you want to watch the rest of Peter Hyatt, and may I just highly recommend to you guys, if you want to know more about Peter Hyatt and just see how absolutely good he is at his job, watch the interview that he does with Richard D. Hall, Hall. Type in Richard D. Hall, Madeline McCann, or just even McCann, and Peter Hyatt, and you will get that interview that he did with Peter Hyatt with Richard D. Hall. And Peter Hyatt did such a great job with the statement analyst. It was doing the first analysis of Jerry and Kate McCann's. It was profound how good he was on that. And that's the first time I had ever heard of Peter Hyatt. And then when he started his YouTube channel, immediately I was a fan. So fangirling here a little bit, but I just do think he is so smart and he is so good at his job. This is why he does law enforcement. Grace said, in my opinion, Chris Proudfoot was told by CSO not to be at the house. CPS, I think you meant. Yeah, because the O is near the P, right? yeah, it's right next to each other. Okay, so CPS not to be at the house with Sebastian. Thank you for sharing that, Grace. Yeah, thank you so much for being there. I think I am going to leave it there. Oh, I just do want to just check in and see if you guys have a couple questions. Calgal said, I never understood why Katie didn't call Seth to see if Sebastian called him maybe. Right? Everything about this whole thing reeks. We have Katie that didn't call Seth herself. Why wouldn't she at least call to see if Sebastian had checked in with him? Was Sebastian trying to get to Seth? Did Seth, come pick him up? No, instead, she has Chris reaching out in a text message. She doesn't call law enforcement herself. She has Chris do it. Why? Chris wasn't in town, according to what you guys have both said. Why does Chris have to do it? Why wouldn't you call 911? You're in town. Was it because you didn't want to do a recorded line? You wanted to have plausible deniability, not to have a recorded line on that, allegedly, in my opinion. Why did you leave the house when law enforcement told you not to search because they wanted you to stay home? Why a few weeks later did you accompany your husband, who was perfectly capable of going to work by himself in Memphis? He'd been going to work there by himself the whole month of February. Why did you leave the house? And why didn't you search for Sebastian until 9 months ago for the first time? And you do this public search, which has already been cleared and searched by law enforcement. Is it because you didn't want to have people searching somewhere where where it wasn't already cleared? Was it just for show? Was it because you were so out of touch with searchers because you never came out to say thank you to any of these people that looked for your son, that until this year anniversary? But you never came out to any of the searchers to talk to anybody. You never came to any of the prayer vigils to thank anybody. Is it because you were just so out of touch with search and rescue that you didn't know that that area had already been cleared? Why didn't you stand up for your son when CPS came to your house? We've heard from Nina Gomez, and Peter Hyatt has told you with his own words that, Nina may have left out a few things that she did. He's both sides in it, but he found her to be credible. He found her, quote, to be reliable. And Nina told us how Chris Proudfoot treated her children from a prior marriage. So, Katie, why didn't you stand up for your kids? Your son, kid, Sebastian. Nina stood up for hers. Thank you. Thank you, Pen Jam. All right, guys. Well, I do feel upset about this. I do want to thank our producers and Jazz, Sasha Angel, George Brown, Pepper, and Lisa Fazio. And if you want to hit the subscribe button, if you want to see more videos on Sebastian, hit the subscribe button, and I will continue to follow this case for as long as you guys want me to. I don't want this case to get cold. I just hope you don't get frustrated with me if I don't have brand new information every time, because I'm not willing to just do rumors with you guys. I do want to bring you guys credible information. I feel like you deserve that. Always. And I do want to give super thanks and coffee gratitude. Thank you so much. You guys allow me to do the smaller cases, these niche cases, like Sebastian Rogers, like Dane. And I do appreciate it. So thank you so much. I'm sorry if today if I'm a little bit more emotional. I do feel all of your frustrations because I feel frustrated with this too. I want charges to be, at least obstruction charges to be brought also. But I think where law enforcement is at is that they need to know where they need Sebastian, or at least have some kind of sign of him. I am concerned, just like you guys, of people talking about how this, the stepfather has said, this case is going to be discussed. What did he say? Something about like for ages or something by law enforcement, like almost bragging. It just feels off. And maybe one thing by itself wouldn't feel so off and wouldn't leave all of us feeling so upset. But it's the cumulative information that we've seen and heard with our own eyes. And then we're being gaslit by people who are telling us, don't believe your own eyes and ears, just believe what I'm saying. And I'm telling you, let's listen to the professionals who do this for. Let's listen to law enforcement who has told us that no one has been cleared. And no matter what you think happened to Sebastian, at the very least, it was neglect. Best case scenario was neglect. And worst case scenario, it was so much more than that. So thank you so much for coming by to spend a little bit of time with me. And I look forward to seeing you guys on the next video. Please subscribe and thank you.